In 1937, neurosurgeons Wilder Penfield and Edwin Bouldry made a discovery that changed our understanding of human existence. By stimulating the brains of patients under local anesthesia, they realized that the human brain does not feel the body directly. Instead, it consults a map, a neurological projection called the cortical homunculus. When you touch your finger, your brain doesn't register the finger, it registers activity in the specific coordinate of this map that represents the finger. You live inside this simulation. Usually, the map and the territory align. But what happens when the territory changes instantly and the map remains the same? When the physical body is altered drastically and violently, the brain enters a crisis state. It is a pilot trying to fly a plane that has lost a wing, but the instrument panel still says the wing is there. Most people never recover from this dissonance. They suffer from phantom limb pain, balance disorders, or a permanent loss of athletic viability. But in 2003, a 13-year-old girl provided a documented case study in radical neurological reprogramming. She didn't just heal, she forced her brain to rewrite its source code in 26 days. To understand the anomaly, we must first establish the baseline. In late 2003, Bethany Hamilton was not merely a recreational surfer. She was a statistical outlier. Ranked second in the nation in her division by the National Scholastic Surfing Association, or NSSA, Hamilton was a terrifyingly efficient competitor. She had already secured a sponsorship with Rip Curl and was effectively a professional athlete in waiting. Surfing is a sport of symmetry. It relies heavily on the righting reflex, the body's automatic response to maintain the head's visual orientation in relation to the horizon. It requires equal weight distribution to paddle, to duck dive under oncoming waves, and to lever the body from a prone position to a standing one. From a physics standpoint, a surfer is a lever. The board is the fulcrum. Remove one side of the force application, and the lever fails. The board rolls. The surfer drowns. On the morning of October 31, 2003, at Tunnels Beach on Kauai, the conditions were ideal. The water was clear, the waves were small. Hamilton was surfing with her best friend, Alana Blanchard, and Alana's father, Holt. There was no warning, no music, no dorsal fin, just a sudden pressure. Hamilton later noted in her autobiography, Soul Surfer, that she didn't feel pain immediately, a common physiological response to massive trauma known as stress-induced analgesia. In 1 second, a 14-foot tiger shark removed her left arm just below the shoulder, and in that same second, her brain's map of her body became obsolete.
The following 15 minutes are a study of survival physiology. The brachial artery is a major pressure vessel. Severing it typically results in unconsciousness within minutes and death shortly after. Hamilton lost approximately 60% of her total blood volume. Holt Blanchard applied a tourniquet using a rash guard and a urethane surfboard leash. This improvisation is likely the only reason the subject survived the paddle back to shore. By the time she arrived at Wilcox Memorial Hospital, she was in hypovolemic shock. Her father, Tom Hamilton, was already at the hospital, prepped for scheduled knee surgery. In a grim twist of logistics, she took his place in the operating room. The media narrative at the time was sympathetic but final. The assumption was that her career was over. The physics of surfing, as understood by biomechanics experts, simply did not support a one-armed athlete at the elite level. But while the media wrote eulogies for her career, Hamilton's biology was engaging in a rapid, aggressive recalibration. Her surgeon, Dr. David Ravinsky, noted her peculiar lack of phantom pain compared to other amputees. While many patients spend months fighting the ghost of a limb, Hamilton seemed to bypass the grieving process of the cortical map. On November 26th, Thanksgiving Eve, exactly 26 days after the event, Hamilton returned to the ocean. It was not a miraculous instant success. It was a forensic reconstruction of movement. The first problem was the duck dive. Without a left arm to push the nose of the board under the wave simply washed her back. The second problem was the pop-up. Standard surfing requires a push-up motion. With one arm, a push-up creates torque, flipping the board instantly. She couldn't use the old map. The hardware had changed. She had to build a patch. This brings us to the core principle: proprioceptive plasticity. Proprioception is the brain's ability to sense the position of the body in space without visual confirmation. It is a continuous feedback loop between mechanoreceptors in the muscles and the somatosensory cortex in the brain. According to neuroscientist V.S. Ramachandran, when a limb is lost, the corresponding area of the brain often hungers for input. In many patients, the face area of the brain, which is adjacent to the hand area on the cortical map, invades the silent territory. This is why some amputees feel their missing hand when they shave their face. Hamilton, however, forced a functional override through what we might call high-velocity exposure therapy. She engineered a physical solution, a handle centered on the deck of the board. This allowed her to place her single hand in the absolute center of gravity, preventing the torque roll. Watch the biomechanics. A standard surfer pushes up. Hamilton pulls herself up while simultaneously kicking her legs under her torso. It is a completely different motor program. By forcing this new movement pattern repeatedly, hundreds of times a day, she prevented her brain from mourning the lost limb. Instead, she tasked it with solving a new physics equation. She didn't wait for the feeling of the arm to fade. She overwrote the data with new input. This aligns with the concept of use-dependent cortical reorganization. The brain allocates resources based on demand. Because Hamilton demanded balance immediately, her brain repurposed the dormant neural pathways for core stability and right-side compensation.
Contrast this with the case of Admiral Lord Nelson. After losing his right arm at the Battle of Santa Cruz de Tenerife, in 1797, Nelson suffered from intense phantom limb sensations for the rest of his life. He famously used this phantom pain as proof of the soul, arguing that if a spirit arm can exist without a body, a spirit man can exist without one too. But neurologically, Nelson represents a failure of remapping. He stopped using the limb's motor function, so the map froze in time, creating a permanent error signal: pain. This is known as maladaptive plasticity. When the brain is not given a new task, it hallucinates the old one. Hamilton avoided the Nelson trap. By re-entering the water 26 days later, she denied her brain the downtime required to solidify the phantom map. She forced the error signal to become a calibration signal. The data from Hamilton's recovery suggests a fundamental truth about human adaptation. The map follows the movement. We often wait to feel ready to adapt to a new reality. We wait for the internal sense of self, the proprioceptive map, to settle before we take action. But the neurological reality is the inverse. You cannot think your way into a new body map. You can only move your way into it. In neurorehabilitation, this is the forced use paradigm. The brain is an efficiency engine. If you stop demanding function from a damaged system, the brain will archive that system. If you demand function, even if the hardware is compromised, the brain will hack its own software to deliver the output. The window for this is finite. The longer the delay between the trauma and the new action, the more rigid the old map becomes. Hamilton's 26-day turnaround wasn't just brave, it was neurologically optimal.
Looking at these events, one can observe patterns that appear across industries and personal histories. We all carry internal maps of our careers, our relationships, our capabilities. When the territory shifts, a job loss, a breakup, a physical failure, the instinct is to wait for the map to realign before moving, to wait until the phantom limb stops hurting. But the biological evidence suggests that is a trap. The Nelson outcome is the default state of waiting. The Hamilton outcome is the result of immediate, clumsy, forceful re-engagement. Where in your own life are you consulting an outdated map? And more importantly, what movement can you execute today to force the update? In 2005, just over a year after the attack, Bethany Hamilton won her first national title in the NSSA Explorer Women's Division. She didn't win the adaptive division, she won the open division. She proved that the human body is not a fixed object, but a dynamic process. And that process is controlled not by what we have lost, but by what we demand of what remains.